Good morning. It's Thursday, May 11th, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. Everybody, welcome to the planning board meeting. Let's call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, Ms. Gaskins? Or substitute?
Member Adwar. Member Demas.
Present.
Member Brown. Member Powell.
Present.
Member Chinosky.
Present.
Chairperson Goldberg.
I think I am here. All right, could we please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just want to remind everybody to please silence their cell phones, if they'd be so kind. Let's have an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the second.
And so approved. Swearing into the public, is there anybody that is making any statements? Doctor? Could we have?
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, we're accepting any public comments. Remember that they're 5 minutes in length. Does anybody have anything to state? Would you please come to the podium and identify yourself?
Hi, Carl Eric Johansson, 2358 South Ocean Boulevard. I'm here again as a representative for a group of single-family homes on the Intercoastal in the area known as Bird Beach.
1 second, is that microphone on?
Won't touch it.
No, it is.
Okay, maybe.
Thank you.
All right, that's fine, thank you. So I come to these meetings because we're passionately concerned about the amendment of the 25-foot setback. We're in opposition of changing that, which has been in existence for a long time. There are many reasons. I've gone over them with you before. But each and every one of the representatives, there are 14 single-family homeowners that are in direct contact with me. Unfortunately, they're either up north, elsewhere, or busy working. And I seem to be their representative. So on their behalf, I'm here again to stress the need to keep the amendment as read as 25-foot setback, especially along the Intercoastal in our neighborhood of Bird Beach. We do not wish to change the character of our neighborhood. We respect our privacy, and we each and every one of us purchased our homes based on the ordinances of the town of Highland Beach. I noticed that several meetings that I attend, it's alluded to, well, Delray does this, Boca does this. What happened to our new sign that says 3 miles of paradise? We all came here over the past several years because of our ordinances, because of the town's structure. And to say that we compare ourselves to our neighboring villages, I don't think does us good service. And people have a choice when they buy a home to buy elsewhere. And it seems like Highland Beach is in great demand at the moment and always has been because of its nature. There are many other things I could go into, but I think you all got the drift that we do think Bird Beach is a special part of Highland Beach. And we hopefully respect that it differentiates us from other parts where the neighborhood is quite a bit different in its structure, its homes, its neighborhood. And the Intercoastal plays a significant role in our existence. We again request that no action be taken on this. It seems to have worked pretty well over the years. It's a good checks and balances, and there are always exceptions down the road if need be. And therefore we oppose any changes made to the 25-foot setback. And thank you very much for your.
Thank you, Doctor. So noted. Excuse me. All right, next approval of minutes and as they were amended. Do we have any motion to approve the minutes as amended? Second, all right. All in favor, say aye. We have some unfinished business. Development application number 21-0010. Bellito Villas Property Owners Association, Inc., application by Richard M. Mendelson for special exception approval to install a 400-foot dock for the property located at 1124 Highland Beach Drive. Does any member have any ex parte communications? Hearing none, Ms. Allen, the microphone is yours.
Okay, good morning. Before I get to the aerials, I did give you a little brief background on this item on the bottom of page 15 in your packets. So this item was scheduled to go before the board back on December 9th of 2021. But there was an error in the property owner information on the application and some of the items that were in their packet. As a result, the item was continued. And obviously there has been quite a bit of time that has passed. So I just wanted to let the board know that given the amount of time that has passed, we've gone ahead and re-advertised the item and we've sent out new 500-foot notices. Also, as just part of the background, the property owner did receive a code violation back in 2021 for installing dock and pilings without a permit. So obviously the applicant came for the board today with their request for a special exception to correct that. If we can go now. Oh, I have it. All right, we'll take a look at some of the aerials. Oh, it's behind you. It's kind of weird. Hey, maybe you could swivel your chair. Oh, it's over there?
I don't know, yeah.
Is the thing over there by you? No, maybe it's up here. No. No. And you can't manipulate it, Jacqueline? Oh, wait, there it goes.
There.
That went too fast. Okay. All right, so aerials. So this is the current aerial for 2023. You could see that's the new dock, right? And just for some perspective, I provided you the aerial from 2016, which obviously is the older dock. And then another aerial from 2018, which is obviously the previous stock as well. This is an after the fact permit, obviously. I indicated in your staff reports on page 16 that we had CAP Government, who does a lot of our building inspections and plan review at the building department. They went out and did some measurements or some photographs in your back packets. They did indicate that the dock installation, given it's an after the fact, does appear to match the plans that have been submitted and are before you today for approval. They have received, the applicant has received both Florida Department of Environmental Protection as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer authorizations. Those file numbers are in your staff report as well. And the applicant's request, including the plans, which are date stamp received by the building department on October 8th of 2021. They are consistent with the special exception regulations that are in the code where applicable, as well as the town comprehensive plan. And I'll be glad to address any questions that you might have. So, straightforward. And the applicant is here as well. So if you want to ask any questions.
I have a question. It's being replaced, when you look at the 2018 picture and the
Yeah.
2023, exactly the same manner,
Yes, it is within the same building footprint. That was also confirmed by CAP.
but you can change materials, meaning I'm noticing that it looks like. the
Yeah,
mater-
it looks like a different type of decking, and I'm sure Mr. Mendelson can get into that. Yeah, it looks like a better quality type decking, yeah.
Okay,
But it is within the same footprint.
okay.
Ingrid, can you review what happened, why this was done without a permit?
Well, Again, I'll have the applicant explain that. Again, a code violation. I'm not sure how it came about that our code enforcement officer was made aware of it. But regardless, there was a violation. And again, I'll defer to the applicant. He can explain that.
Mr. Mendelson, is there any other questions of Ingrid?
No.
Mr. Mendelson? So what happened?
Well, back in 2021 in January, we were originally just going to replace.
Bring it up closer.
We were originally just going to replace the boards on the top of the dock, and we were told by the builder, or whatever, that it was just maintenance and we didn't need the permit for that. We took all the boards off, and when they took the boards off, they noticed that the substructure probably needed to be replaced. For that, of course, we would have needed a permit, but at that point, I mean, it was already open and it was kind of dangerous back there. And then after they took the substructure off or actually replaced the substructure, we decided to also put new pilings in. And they took piling out, put the new one in the same hole. And so everything is exactly the same dimensions. And we were notified as they were finishing up the dock that we needed a permit, but this was no surprise to us. And we immediately hired an engineer to take care of the permits, the Army Corps, the FDP, whatever. And he turned out to not be very reputable, and he ripped us off for a lot of money and never did follow up on any of the permits. When we finally realized that he had not applied for any permit, including, working with Town Hall, which he had told us every day that he was. By then, we had already gotten into the penalties and all the other stuff. I took over the project at that time to make sure it got done. I made all the applications to the Army Corps, to the FDP. I worked with Ingrid to get all of our documents in order. And then we were supposed to have this meeting in December of 2021. At that point, literally on the eve of the meeting, it was discovered that there was a typo in our deed going back to 1980 that showed that we didn't really own the property. And it was, well, it's taken me
A while.
a year and a half and 7 attorneys and a lot of money, but we finally got that resolved about 6 weeks ago. And I've been working with Ingrid to get everything back up to snuff, so to speak. So that's where we go.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is small, but and petty, but I'm just curious myself. I noticed you have 9 pilings right now, and it looks like you used to have 7. Was
No.
that, no, the same,
Exactly the
same thing? Yeah, I was just looking at them.
No change. They are in exactly the same spot.
Same spot when you pull them up.
And
in
they're the
vacuum.
same height, they're the
Same height.
same everything, and they're wood pilings. They just went right back in the hole. And they did them one at a time because they'd already built the substructure.
Right.
So they took the old one out, put the new one in, and they just went all.
Well, thank you very much
Thank you.
for your testimony.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Roger.
I'm pretty familiar with Bellito, and my understanding is that property is 3 units, correct?
Correct.
And 2 of them are owned by one person?
Correct.
That would be you?
Well,
Okay. And
the other guy.
how
Is your
many?
mic on, Roger?
Excuse me?
Is your mic?
Yes. Hello. How many members are there of the Bellito Villas Property Association? Are there more?
Me and the other guy.
So it's just your building?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's your sailboat out back? Is that your sailboat out back? All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Let me just clarify for the board. So we sometimes have people who want to just replace the decking of their docks.
Mm.
And that typically could just be a straightforward permit if it's within the same building footprint. But the minute you pull out the pilings, right, the code says when you install a dock, that's the key word, then you have to come before the planning board. So I just want to make that
All
clear.
right. David?
The page 30 of the document I have, I guess, is pre changing of the decking, right? But you can see in looking at that picture, there's clearly structural issues. At that time, the second piling in is clearly lower than the others. The dock is sagging. I don't know. The rules, I assume so.
Well, that's because the whole island is sinking.
Looks like it.
Was a large boat had been there. Go and he tied up those like the pilings and when the tide went down, top of, just the top of the piling snapped off. So the bottom of the piling was still structurally there and we kind of fixed the dock around and let it down.
I mean, it's not a big deal, but it appears that the dock in this picture is clearly sagging. So indicating there were structural issues before you started to replace the decking. Anyway, it's more of a, I guess, a statement than an issue.
Yeah, there were some maintenance issues on the dock, which is why we hired.
Yes.
That picture on page 30, this was taken by the CAP government
Hmm.
plan reviewer that went to inspect it. Yeah, that's just, I believe, is that to your, this dock, is that to your? Okay, I think he just took it maybe for the perspective of the wall, seawall possibly. Yeah, that's not the dock in question.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
not.
If you look at the previous pages, you'll see the dock in question. See the darker, that's it right there, on page 29.
Gotcha.
Any other questions of the applicant
No,
or of Ingrid? All right, at this time, the public meeting is now closed. Jacqueline, would you please call the roll for approval?
We never motion.
Oh, a motion. We do need a motion. Anybody want to make that motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to move forward as stated.
All right, all in favor, or do we need a roll call? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Thank you for coming before the board.
Good luck.
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to the ongoing discussion, the proposed changes, amendment concepts to the accessory marine facility and seawall regulations of the town code. Ms. Allen,
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
it'll be fine.
Okay. All right, so on page 69 of your packets, I basically have done a little overview of your April 13th meeting and what you all had discussed, just to refresh all your memories. You had talked about several of the concepts, of course, not all of them. With regards to the maximum height for accessory marine facilities at base flood elevation plus 7 feet. You did make a general statement that there should be a limit, and your I guess consensus was to have member Brown provide his input, given apparently it's been on record that he's an avid voter. With regards to the requirement for a ladder for every 50 feet of dock, the board agreed that it's reasonable for health and safety. And you also considered for the ladders to be a requirement, not just for the docks, but for seawalls as well. And the point was also made that the location of the ladder should not interfere with the docking or mooring of vessels. And with regards to the 10-foot setback for all zoning districts, you agreed to apply the setback for multifamily zoning districts as proposed. Now, I had mentioned at the last meeting, I'll be glad to bring in those maps which show the lot widths and some of the canal widths. I know it wasn't requested by the board, but I thought it would be helpful just to show you, because there's a lot of nuance on the ground when it comes to the multifamily zoning districts. And let's see, on page, actually, I don't know if they have page numbers, but you'll see some legal pages right after this staff report. You'll have a variety of maps. These maps are within the residential multifamily zoning districts. So the first one, which is map number 1, I have it up here. If you go to the accessory marine PowerPoint now. I just want the board to be mindful that we have in some of the multifamily zoning districts in the condos, continuous docks, or, yeah, I have it up here behind you, but it's also in your packet. So you have to be mindful that, if you do support a 10-foot setback for multifamily, I mean, in this case, obviously the setback would apply to the end of those docks, but, there's some other multifamily. Yeah, this is Boca Highlands. Up here, just near this, I guess it's all Grant Court. Again, you have here continuous docks. So, and you have property lines here. So the way the amendment concept is currently written, would be 10 feet. So you're not going to make a continuous dock, cut up the dock, right? And then provide a 10-foot side setback. So I think the board has to be mindful to address the continuous dock reality on the ground. And then here, we also see these continuous docks. This is Boca Cove Lane, and I believe this is Russell Drive, right? Yes. Again, these are all continuous docks. You can see there's property lines here. This is property line. So obviously you're not going to chop up a dock. The way that this amendment concept reads is 10-foot size setback. And these are individual lot lines here. So something to be mindful of. Multifamily, right? This is multifamily low density. And then actually I went out on the Marine Patrol vessel yesterday with the commissioner. And I did notice, again, this is in between Bel Air Drive and Russell Drive. There are even those here, and then even the multifamily that's right across from Bel Air. There's a lot of existing docks there that are right now to the property line on individual lots. You have to be mindful that if you are in agreement with the amendment concept to do the 10-foot side setback, there will be property owners that will lose part of their dock. They won't have to change it if the amendment concept gets approved, but then maybe 5, 10, 20 years down the line, when they want to put a brand new dock, they're not going to go right to the property line anymore. They're going to lose 10 feet. So just something for you all to be mindful of. There's 2 more maps that show. Yeah, this area right here, I noticed yesterday. This is, Belito right here, these multifamily, a lot of them I saw are that the docks are right to the property line. And then there's one more here. Yeah, this is again on the north part of Belito. Again, these are all multifamily with docks that, again, if the amendment concept gets approved, may lose the length of their dock.
Thank you for bringing that to our
future,
attention.
yes.
That is an interesting.
Yeah.
Thought.
And then I'll just continue just real quick with just the overview. So with regards to the maximum, I'm sorry, there was another item that the board was interested in including in your recommendation to the commission, which was the floating docks. You indicated that you want this to be part of the amendments. And I went ahead and put the code section in the code of ordinances, which indicates that floating docks are subject to conformance with all zoning requirements. And Town Attorney, Mr. Rubin, indicated that there may be some leeway. If you remember, we have
Yeah.
floating vessel platforms, and those floating boat lifts are exempt by the state. We currently have an application on the building department webpage we have an exemption application. And I know that Mr. Rubin was going to look into that, and I'll just defer to you, and then I can come back to the rest of the items. Thanks.
How many families would be, how many owners would be affected on that? If there was a change that they would lose 10
The
feet?
multifamily, we did not do an assessment of each property. I mean, I did notice several, but yeah, I didn't do an official assessment. It was just like yeah. just
And
a-
who was, may I ask, who was the commissioner who was with you?
Ms. Goldberg.
Okay. You,
Floating vessel platforms. So, and there's actually a bill that was passed during the last session that gave us even less authority than we had already, which was very little to begin with. So essentially, those are the ones that you drive up on, they float in the water. Most people use them for jet skis and those kind of things. Right on. If so what the statute is going to say, once it's signed by the government, is if they are connected to an existing dock or an existing slip, The owner can self-certify. There's certain criteria that they have to meet pursuant to the statute. It has to, float, and then there are things about it can't create a navigational hazard or infringe on the riparian rights of adjacent property owners. But essentially they can, and I think that's what the form that we have online now
Yeah,
is essentially like a registration.
yeah,
Self-certification that they meet the requirements. The only time we have any leeway, or so it seems, is if they're attached directly to a bulkhead or seawall. So if they're attached directly to a bulkhead or seawall, you can require that it be affixed according to the manufacturer's specifications or designed by an engineer. And if there's no dock there already, you can apply setbacks. So if you adopt a setback for docks, and these are just for the ones that are attached directly to the bulkhead or the seawall. But if they're in an existing dock space, we really have no leeway whatsoever. But if they're attached directly to the bulkhead or the seawall, we could enforce some type of setback. And that's essentially what it is. We have very little authority over those.
Anybody have any questions of the attorney? Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So when I put in my floating vessel platform, I sent a copy of the Attorney General's opinion from the state of Florida that says that actually the city has no authority over the floating vessel platform.
Well, so the statute says that you can't require for the permitting, but you can enforce other regulations that are not addressed in the state statute. And really, you can only do it, as I said, if there's no dock opening. I think you can do a setback, but
But there's
and that
no
seems to
permitting,
be what the legislation says.
there's no permitting required for a floating vessel platform.
Generally, no, but you can require a permit just to ensure that it meets the other codes if we have a setback.
But there is a setback
For floating vessel platform.
no, for the property.
Oh, for the profit, yeah, but I mean, a setback for the floating vessel platform.
Well, I just want to say that the Attorney General's opinion says that you cannot enforce greater restrictions
Then the state.
than the state's restrictions.
Right, but it also, the statute specifically says if the state doesn't address it, you can, and in the new amendment, it does say that you can require a one-time permit for ones that are attached directly to the seawall. I mean, I'll give you the statute. I'll send it to you.
I would like to see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hey, Ingrid,
yes.
I'm challenged by one thing. What is the need right now? I'm trying to see what the need was as far as making a change that people would be affected in their own property, but I don't really see the need. Am I missing something?
You mean for the 10-foot setback?
Correct.
Yeah, again, this was an amendment concept that was proposed by the previous vice mayor. I know I think when you all had this item back in March, I had provided the initial report that Mr. Bobby gave. I can look through it while you all are discussing. I'll pull it up, but I know that for this particular item, he had indicated that, I believe it was Boca Raton. He may have also referenced Pompano Beach, that they have a 10-foot setback for multifamily zoning. And, that we should be in compliance with what other municipalities are doing. I'm paraphrasing here. I'll be happy to look it up while you discuss.
Curiosity.
To have them, yeah. That the question I have is I thought the concern, at least from my perspective, and some of the residents have expressed that, and maybe Roger, you can chime in on this since you're the boat owner right now. That their concern was not so much the dock, but that the boats were extending over into other people's properties. And I think that's where we talked about some of the setback issues.
Right, so you're talking about the mooring of a boat, right?
Yes.
So, right, the code, and I had mentioned this at the public input meetings. The code basically states if you're mooring a boat, you just have to keep that boat within your property line. That's it.
Right,
Could
but
be a-
yeah,
as
I
long as it
understand
won't
that, but since we are working through this whole
Yeah.
thing. Roger, have you heard of any issues with boats extending out into other people's
Yes,
areas, right?
yes, that's the riparian rights, right? Going the,
Essentially,
Well,
yeah.
so it's, if you, as as your property line extends into the water, another boat can't cross your property line. And we have had instances like that, not mine, but there have been
No, I
instances
know, I do.
in Bellito Isle where the neighbors, the
Have
neighboring
extended over,
homes actually came to their own conclusion. And the gentleman who owns the house, whose boat was overlooking, had to go rent a slip at a marina. I mean, he could have fought it, but they were being
But,
neighborly
yeah.
and being courteous.
I don't think we were so much concerned about the docks, because the dock is a dock. I mean, that's not interfering with anybody's
No,
vision or
but the
right
boat,
to.
but the boat needs to not be over the property
Well,
line.
I think maybe we have to write it up as that rather than just necessarily a dock.
I think that's existing.
Yeah, Ingrid, is it existing? It says that it can go past the property line extended.
Yes.
Yeah, but-
I Pull up, I'll read it.
Yeah, but
verbatim.
I'm not worried so much about the property line. Someone can put their large boat right up to the property line and it's, again, interfering with someone's not necessarily riparian rights, but their visual rights to enjoy their view. And I think that's where we started going with the setback.
So you're looking for like a mooring setback, right?
Yes,
Okay. So this is what the code said. It's section 30-68, G is in Georgia 4. When moored, any portion of a boat shall not extend beyond any property line as extended with water. So you're looking for considering a mooring setback.
yes, I think that when someone's coming for approvals, it's almost obvious that you're not going to be building your dock across someone else's property unless you have specific approval from that person, and then it won't happen anyway. But I think it's more the concern is a mooring setback, at least in my mind, that, if there's a 10-foot setback for mooring, that way, you're clearing everybody else's vision and not interfering with anybody's rights to view the water / enjoyment. Anybody else agree?
I don't think
disagree?
I don't think you can do that, Eric, because it's a floating vessel and it just needs to stay within the borders of your property line. If it goes beyond the borders, I mean, now you're talking about your view. I mean, that's pretty much of an opinion of the view. I mean, the home that I live in, before I owned it, the gentleman had a 88-foot boat on a 100-foot seawall. And, the neighbors could have complained and said it blocked my view. I mean, one of my neighbors complained and said that I blocked his view with my floating vessel platform. So it's really an opinion. So I don't think that you can legislate that.
Ingrid, those, like on Russell Boulevard. The continuous dock, they're pretty much with an HOA, are they not?
I would assume so. Yeah, I guess there's some sort of HOA there. As I said, they're individual lots, but yeah, I'm sure it's an HOA. Yeah.
And they get decision for an HOA?
I don't know if that's a wise decision, right there.
Could I ask a question? The zoning areas, so you have multiple family zoning district and you have single family zoning district. Are those the only two?
Well, there's several multifamilies. So we have multifamily low, multifamily medium, multifamily high, and then there's two types of single family. There's a residential,
There's an
estate, and then there are residential single family, right? Yeah, and then we also have a government services district.
And when you're talking about this gentleman's Bird Beach, is that designated as its own district?
No, that is zoned a residential single family, RS. It's one of the two single family zoning districts.
Where is the estates on the ocean side?
Yes,
And the other
I'm
single
sorry,
family,
it's on the intercoastal.
and the other single family zoning district is Bellito Isle. right?
No, let's see here. Okay, so there's RS, I don't have a copy of the zoning map on the PowerPoint. There's RS on the intercoastal, right at the border with Delray Beach, and then right across from that is RE, which is the estate. And then let's see, other than that, when you're in the middle part of the town, like right across from Town Hall, you have a whole row of homes that are RS single family on the ocean. Then you have Belito. And then as you go closer to the boundary with Boca on the ocean side, there are a few parcels that are also single family residential, single family zoning.
And is there a limitation on the categories of zoning districts?
A limitation on the categories
Well, I mean,
to have
if
more.
if you wanted to make another zoning district,
I guess there's always that possibility to do that, but obviously you'd have to amend the zoning map, right? There's a whole process there, and you have to keep in mind. You create a new zoning district, you have to create a new corresponding land use designation. That mimics the density and all of that. And that process is a state process. The state gets involved. It's typically a two-phase process, a transmittal process and an adoption process. So there's a lot involved. Yeah.
I'm just, the reason why I'm asking those questions is because if the residents of Bird Beach are so adamant about not having their setbacks changed, then would it be possible to, if they had 100% approval of all the residents, to be able to designate them as a different zoning district or some other type of designation where they would have a different setback than their similar designation, than their similar zoning districts?
I mean, I guess we could come up with some sort of language, maybe with an exception. I don't know. That's something we'd have to look at to see what would be the best way to, implement something like that.
And as long as they had 100% acceptance.
I mean.
No, I don't
could-
think that'll
Yeah,
happen.
It's up to the town ultimately.
Yeah.
They agree or not.
I mean, I've seen codes where they exempt certain areas or certain streets from certain regulations. I think we'd have to really massage that with the town attorney just to make sure it's legally sufficient and all that, but that's the recommendation you all ultimately want to make to the commission. You can by all means do so.
But I think, Ingrid, I appreciate you bring that to our attention about the docks and the multifamily. I think it's something we really have to think about. And I don't think we're gonna come to a conclusion today on that. So why don't we table that and move it for another day, give us some thought. Maybe we have to go out and see it for ourselves. What do you think? So let's see if we can set that up and maybe we can understand exactly what you're saying rather than seeing the
Possibly
pictures.
do another tour on the boat.
Yes, that would be,
It's interesting. The more you go out, the more detail you see. I mean, I've
So,
seen now a
Eric,
lot of stuff.
I understand about the continuous docks in the multifamily.
right,
Facilities. I certainly understand that and I wouldn't want to take away from
right.
those multifamily facilities. And in reference to the floating docks, there's actually more than 40 floating docks in the town that are actually attached to the bulkhead. Because I've counted them all. And so that might be a difficult thing as well by setting up setbacks for those. And then in reference to the Bird Beach issue, I mean, I think that we should just try and find a solution. if
Yeah,
they get-
absolutely. I
If they
agree.
get 100%, approval of the
Or a
residents.
majority at least, yeah. I don't think you're ever gonna get 100% unless the doctor really wants to work harder at that. But,
Well, I think you can get 100%.
okay, well, I don't have an issue with that. I
Yeah.
think if everybody's neighborhood is, and everybody's consistent with that seems like a reasonable thought.
Yes,
Yes?
yes,
Yes,
it's a reasonable thought.
a reasonable thought. All right, can we decide to move on then at this point? And table that?
Okay, let me continue with the remaining items. Bear with me.
Okay.
Okay, with regards to the maximum seawall height, you did make a comment that you wanted the expert to testify. I did reach out to ATM, who is our marine expert, and he indicated to me he can come to the June 8th meeting. We will have an item on the agenda, an applicant.
That would be
item, so-
wonderful, because for us to do
yes.
that is like,
No, of
we're
course.
not as knowledgeable.
Yeah. And then your last item that you discussed at the last meeting was the encroachment into the waterway, 20 feet or 25%, et cetera. So your discussion was that you want to measure it from the closest landward position to accommodate, again, those property lines that we've looked at several times that are in the water. And to apply the 25 feet or 25% encroachment to the canals and lakes only and exclude the intercoastal waterway. And I think I had mentioned to the board that at the public input meeting, Mr. Bobby, who was there, had indicated to me afterwards that, hey, maybe that should, I think that was his intent, that it should only be applied to the canals and lakes. So.
I think we were all in agreement on that. Thank you.
I'm pulling up Mr. Bobby's report, so if you want to discuss on anything else.
No, I think we had all been in agreement that this was for the canals and not necessarily the intercoastal, because that also was a little bit out of our purview too.
Okay, I have Mr. Bobby's report here. So with regards to his intent on proposing the 10-foot side setback.
By the way, good morning, Joe. You know, I think ex-vice Mayor Bobby didn't realize about the continuing docks. I think that was part of,
I think what I'll do, because there's a lot of information here.
yes.
For your next meeting on June 8th, I'll provide his report to you all again. I don't want to paraphrase. I'd rather you look at it verbatim as he wrote it. Yeah, there's a lot here, so I'll provide that as your backup.
Any other
amendment
questions of
concepts
English?
you want to address at this point? Didn't.
Just real quickly, if I may ask the
Yeah.
doctor, how many homes are in the where are?
Oh.
Well, I'll put that on record. Do you want to come back up?
Yeah, just the HOA is the Bird Beach Association, which represents 13 homeowners who have an easement to the beach. And that's been there since 1993. There are a total of 17 property owners with single-family homes on the intercoastal in Bird Beach. And of those 17, there's an empty lot. There's a new homeowner just being built. Has not been contacted. There's one homeowner who is would like to have the 10-foot setback. And there's a conflict between another neighbor and her neighbor. That neighbor is for it and the other one's against it. So we've sort of eliminated the conflict. So there would be it'd be harmony between the neighbors. We have a majority. And one of the things that's interested me in attending all these meetings, I don't see any real support for the single family homeowners, and I'm just directing to the single family homeowners in support of changing the 25 to 10. Now, you may have anecdotal notes of people contacting you that they would like it changed, but as far as the coming to meetings and to be passionately involved in preserving the 25 foot, I don't see anyone on the opposition that wants to change it. You may have a different opinion, but just my observation from attending all these meetings. And the value of our homes is very important. Reason we purchased them, and I can go on and another meeting.
We understand.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions of Ms. Allen on the subject? Hearing none, I recommend that we move forward. Is there any new business? Hearing none. Announcements, May 16th, 2023 at 1:30 Town Commission meeting. May 23rd at 1:30 PM, Town Commission special meeting. June 6th at 1:30 PM, Town Commission meeting. Our June 8th Planning Board meeting at 9:30, and then we'll be able to hear from the Marine Specialist. And June 13th at 1 PM, the Code Enforcement meeting. Any other comments? I am asking for a recommendation for adjournment. Do we have a motion?
Also move. Make a motion.
All right, let's second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting is closed at 10:14.